Threats and concerns for global shipping in 2024 and beyond. Lee Smith is a global trade attorney at Baker Donelson. Hi, Lee.
Hi, thanks for having me on.
Thanks for being with me. So, Lee, given the continuing threats to global supply chains in the Red Sea and elsewhere, what issues are at the top of their agenda as they prepare for the coming year and beyond?
Sure. The first item is cost. And what I mean by cost, in addition to the additional fees for longer travel, insurance costs and other items that are going to raise the cost of the goods through shipping, and also time, the cost of the time spent when the goods are having to be rerouted through other ports, which at this point is largely what seems to be occurring, and the types of questions that have to be answered, which is the final thing, internal costs. A lot of these
Mhm.
supply chains have been being used for many, many years, and now they're going to have to entirely rethink that, which is an additional cost on the internal management of a company.
The implication here is that these changes are not short term, that we're seeing shifts in suppliers and delays in shipping that are route diversions also. They're going to be with us for some time to come. Is that your impression?
I think so. I just don't see the conflict ending in just more of a general statement. It seems to be global conflict is has been increasing since the invasion of Ukraine, and unfortunately, I don't that what I'm seeing in the news, and I'm not, I have no control over it,
Hmm.
but it seems to be that it is continuing to increase, and that is at least the near term trajectory.
Sure, sure. But let's talk about some other specific issues that come up in global shipping. I'm especially interested in, and I know you are as well, the Section 301 cases on Chinese shipbuilding and the maritime logistics sectors. What's going on there, Lee?
Sure. This is a very interesting case using Section 301 of the trade laws, which is a rarely used law because the United States actually lost a World Trade Organization case on the use of Section 301 many years in the past. However, I don't think any of your viewers will forget that the Section 301 duties placed on China as a result of the intellectual property investigation that was conducted by the previous administration. So this new case is on shipbuilding and ship logistics software, and essentially, China has really taken over through subsidization and other issues, as alleged in the report, the shipbuilding industry, and through its state-owned companies that are shipping companies, is really taking control of the software that helps book routes and things like that.
Mhm.
And because ships and the software aren't entering the United States as a general commodity like an import, the traditional trade rules are not really suited to deal with it. So this case was filed by the union. So the union workers filed this case, which the current administration has a lot of sympathy and is quoted to say they're going to be the most union friendly administration, in history.
Mhm.
And the USTR, this is filed at the United States Trade Representative, issued a press release noting that it was filed and saying that she was looking forward to closely reviewing the allegations, which leads me to believe that an investigation will be started.
Yeah. Now, one of the interesting things we're hearing is the possibility the assessment may be under Section 301 of punitive docking fees for Chinese ships. First of all, there are docking fees for all ships of one kind or another. Is there precedent for levying additional such fees against ships of foreign origin, such as this?
I don't know all firsthand, and that information is not provided in the submission. I think that if that were the case, you would have to go back to really around the First and Second World War timeframe to determine whether or not to see if the United States was actually punishing certain countries in this way.
Mhm.
I would be the situation here is, and some credit to the attorneys that drafted this, they're thinking of some sort of unique way to, punish or get rent or tariff the Chinese ships as opposed to others, and that's where they hung their hat. Of course, the U.S. trade representative and the administration in general can decide what actions they want to take in response after they complete their investigation.
Hmm.
But historically, I can't think of another instance where this has occurred.
Yeah, certainly the 301 duties are have become all too common, or tariffs, but not taking that form. That's really interesting if that happens. You were also talking about logistics information, and in this respect, I wonder the extent to which information is power. Specifically, the Logink or Logink, that is China's national public information platform for transportation and logistics. Tell me a
Yes.
little bit about that, and what are the implications of that for global shipping?
Sure. So, just taking a big step back here, there's been a big drive in the federal government about the national security of control of data. That goes from personal data, personal privacy to electric cars driving data to and all vehicles driving data and the data that they collect. Um, and that's become such a large issue as artificial intelligence grows because data is the food that feeds artificial intelligence. So there are many out there that say, whatever country controls the data or not controls the data, but has the most robust data set, the best data will have better artificial intelligence.
Hmm.
And here again, China has been pushing for control over the logistics industry for many, many years, from shipbuilding to control over this software. And it, it this the fear is that China will have a better understanding of what's coming in and out of the United States and have information about infrastructure that we perhaps don't want them to have.
Hmm.
And it is suggested that as a national security concern. So I'm not going to opine. I understand the fear of having an adversary having a lot of information about you. That okay. I'm
Hmm.
not going to opine whether or not it's truly a national security risk or not. I will say that the timing of such a allegation is good because this is what so many people in the administration and Congress are thinking about: data security, specifically data security with respect to Chinese
Hmm.
access to.
Well, would it be that how would China get access to this information? Would it be illegally? Would it be through hacking? Or is that information so regularly available that they simply avail themselves of that data?
What's a state-owned Chinese company that has this, and pursuant to China laws, in my understanding, it's a state-owned Chinese company that has this data, has the software, and so
Hmm.
pursuant to China law, all Chinese companies have to give the government access if requested, and
Hmm.
um, and even though this kind of goes to, not to bring in a unrelated topic, but the TikTok issue where companies are saying, well, they say they're not going to get the data, but the government of China has access, so we want to
Yeah.
not allow that to happen. This is obviously not as high profile as that issue, but it's the same line of thinking that do we want the government of China to have all of this access, which it will have whenever it wants, if it's a state-owned company
Hmm.
is getting this data.
But even access to information that doesn't specifically involve Chinese ships, I mean, just any kind of activity, say at U.S. ports or logistics systems?
Well, any information that's logged into this system can be accessed. So
Yeah.
they don't. I the government of China's rules for national security are drafted so broadly that
Mm.
if it is under the control of a Chinese company in China, the government of China, pursuant to its laws, can get access to it, and that's even more so if the company is a state-owned company.
Yeah.
And again, just sort of saying that's the type of situation that the U.S. government will be looking at in this investigation,
Hmm.
whether the if that is a problem, and if it's so, how to address it.
Meanwhile, back in the United States, the Federal Maritime Commission is waking up and contemplating a crackdown on carriers' demurrage fees, that is, fees for containers and freight delayed at ports and related actions. How is that going to impact service, cost of ocean, intermodal transportation going forward?
Sure, sure. It's going to create a lot of litigation expenses
Mm-hmm.
for some of the shippers. Um, and this is sort of a two-part issue here. I mean, obviously, the issue is that the Federal Maritime Commission has allowed for rights of actions for overcharging of demurrage, including focusing on the incentive principle being that demurrage is there to incentivize the movement of containers. You know, you don't want your
Sure.
container sitting.
Mm-hmm.
However, when that's overlaid with the current posture of U.S. Customs and Border Protection, really pushing for more enforcement on a variety of issues from the Uyghur Forced Labor Prevention Act, intellectual property exclusion orders, just investigating items from China or other countries that they think might be infringing on some law. And then I can just say from experience, headquarters, well, CBP headquarters says this is where we're going to focus. And of course, the ports dutifully do what they're supposed to do, but perhaps they're not ready for this level of enforcement. So containers are held at the port for
Yeah.
way longer than preferred by the customers.
Mm-hmm.
And their inspection gets backed up and they're inspecting it. That gets backed up because there's not enough officers to look at it. And this
Yeah.
can be tens of thousands to hundreds of thousands of dollars in demurrage. And of course, traditionally and historically, your shipping companies just ran the clock on demurrage because that's what they did, and that's was perfectly fine.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Now the Federal Maritime Commission, through already released regulations and regulations are going to be finalized, and precedents that's coming out of the FMC, is saying no, you can't just overcharge for demurrage anymore. It has to be if the person can't get their goods, then you shouldn't be charging demurrage. And
Mm-hmm.
we're seeing are companies, filing letters and complaints to shipping companies to get back the demurrage that was charged.
Right. But the cost is going to be imposed. Someone's going to end up paying for it at some
Of
point
course,
in
there'll
the,
be legal fees as
yeah.
well as funds coming back from the shipping companies. But the issue I mean, I guess what the FMC is saying is that it is that the shipping companies aren't really these fees aren't doing anything. So you're just sort
Yeah.
of collecting rent for no reason, and that's kind of what they're trying to disincentivize with the from the incentive principle. And of course, shipping
Mm-hmm.
companies don't want to be named and shamed by filing a public complaint.
Sure. Well, shipping companies, shippers, and carriers alike have a lot on their plate coming up. We have just managed to touch on some of the very high points, but Lee Smith, I thank you so much for giving me a quick review of what some of those concerns are going into 2024 and beyond. Thank you very much for being with me today.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate the opportunity.